In the 3rd grade I was an awkward kid, had a mean drunk father, struggled to fit in and make friends, was bullied and shunned by other kids. One of my classmates, let's call him Derek, who regularly partook in bullying me, showed me kindness one day. Being deprived of kindness or attention so regularly I was putty in his hands. He hung out with me during recess when I was usually alone. We laughed and talked about girls we like. He even apologized for being an idiot to me. The reason he was nice to me was because I had brought a very popular, expensive Batman action figure to school with me to pass the time since I was alone mostly. I saved allowance and mowed lawns for 2 months to buy that toy. Everyone wanted one. By the end of the day he asked me if he could lend the action figure, and like the naive, socially inept kid I was, I trusted him with it. The deal was to return it the following morning. I went home so happy, completely fooled, I never suspected a thing. The following day he completely ignored me. When I tried to talk to him he acted like I was crazy. When I asked him to return the action figure he simply said, "You never gave me any Batman. Maybe you imagined it," and when I persisted he threatened to beat my ass. When I complained to my teacher I was told that it was my own fault for bringing toys to school. I was afraid they would involve my father, so I dropped it. I couldn't let my father know or I would be called a pussy and have my ass beat and punished for the next 2 weeks. What's worse is Derek told all the girls that I confided to him about fancying that I lusted after them and that I wanked to them. I was a social outcast before that, but at least I was tolerated. But after his smear campaign with the girls I was a leper. People wouldn't even look me in the eyes, not even the teachers. Kids started throwing stones at me, sabotaged and vandalized my property. It was hell. I did nothing about it but cry. I was just a weak-willed kid after all, but to this day I wish I'd bite someone's ear off or something. Anything in retaliation. After a while the bullying died down. I focused on my studies and started getting good grades. Derek started talking to me again, but I ignored him completely. Sometimes he would repeat, "Why are you being such a baby? You didn't give me anything. You imagined it." By the end of the year we moved houses and I transferred to another school not far away. Things were much better there. I finally had friends and I was not as naive anymore, so I was not as easily targeted. But I was still mostly me and still got picked on now and then. Over the years I became somewhat of a delinquent, and in high school I got into regular fights. I may have been overcompensating for the lack of a spine I had in my younger years. I bartended in nightclubs, hotels, and cruise liners in my early 20s. This helped me a lot to be more socially adept and to understand social dynamics and human nature. I finished trade school and qualified as an electrician and later as a plumber. I know, water and electricity, but believe it or not, I thought it was ingenious at the time. I started my own business, developed a reputation for excellent workmanship in my local area, and did well for myself. When I was 29, I'm 36 now, I received a call out at 2 in the morning for a flooding emergency at a local residence. When I got there the place was a mess. Water was jetting out of a burst pipe and electrical equipment was shorted. It was highly dangerous. The living room floor was caved in due to a sinkhole. I was met by the wife, let's call her Jane, hysterical and beside herself. She somehow thought that she was responsible, which I found odd. I assured her that it couldn't possibly be her fault. He arrived not 5 minutes later. His demeanor was irate. He didn't greet or shake my hand when I offered. I recognized him immediately, Derek from all those years ago. He demanded to know why I have not begun fixing the issue yet. I was professional. Told him what I'd told the wife in terms of costs, but I hid the written quote in my vehicle. I told him who I was and acted happy to see him, and assured him that he was in good hands. After a while of arguing with his wife he seemed to calm down and joked around with me. I knew I had fooled him. We talked about our careers, kids, our school days. I gave him tips and fake recommendations. We got along great. His trust was easy to gain. He must have thought of me as a complete sucker. I assured him that he was in good hands and this would be fixed in no time. I was careful not to start any actual work on the property. Doing the smallest thing would make me responsible for all of it. Derek left after an hour or so and his wife stayed behind. I started my revenge. When I was doing my assessment I noticed that most of the buildings did not comply with city regulation and did not adhere to the registered and approved plans. There were multiple safety hazards and all plumbing and electrical work were completed by unqualified and uncertified people in an attempt to save money. Also, the pipe in question had been leaking for a few weeks at least, getting worse by the day and finally causing disaster, which means their water bill would be astronomical at the end of the month unless a qualified plumber endorses a rebate with the municipality. I called my contact at the city, let's call him Donovan, and notified him of all the regulatory violations, safety hazards, and non-city compliant installations on the property. I also told him of the possible water bill. He promised to be there the next day. I immediately started photographing and documenting. The following morning my contact was there at 10. He had a field day. He informed Derek's wife of the calamity that was to come. They would be forced to tear down all the building additions, remove all the uncertified plumbing and wiring installations, have the plans reapproved, and start from scratch, which is an estimated loss of approximately $950,000. Derek was there in minutes. He was livid. He quickly threatened legal action, but Donovan simply told him that he had more than enough photograph evidence to have the property declared invalid within a week if Derek did not comply in writing. Donovan reminded Derek that he does this for a living and that the city has more legal resources to waste money on. I left Derek an invoice for my time just to smear salt in the wound and took my leave. Later he called me every name under the sun. I remained silent and he hung up. He went on a Facebook rant about me, which was a bad idea. All of the community stood up for me and started a storytelling competition where all kinds of people revealed stories of unsavory things Derek did to them in the past. Apparently Derek has always been an idiot. He never changed. One day he called me and asked to meet. He sounded defeated and depressed, so I decided to meet and see what's up. I met him at a busy local convenience store. I know better than to take Derek the Weasel at face value, so I noticed quickly when he laid his phone screen down on the table. I knew he may be recording the conversation. He apologized for his behavior, which surprised me, and told me that this whole dilemma has all but bankrupted him. He told me he took out a loan for the building additions and cut corners to save money, that everyone does it. He showed me the water bill, which was nearly $80,000, a problem easily erased with a qualified plumber's signature and endorsement. I refused. He got irate again. Then he asked me, "Why did you do this to me? I know I was a prick to you when we were kids, but I don't deserve to have my and my wife's lives ruined because of mistakes I made when I was a kid. What kind of person are you? You told me I was in good hands. I trusted you. You assured me you would help me. Then you stabbed me in the back. You quoted me only a few hundred and told me not to worry," I replied. "I said no such thing." "Derek, stop lying. You told me that it would cost a few hundred, maybe less. I heard you say it. You promised to help me, gave me recommendations. Why are you doing this to me?" "Seneca, Derek, you must have imagined it." I looked him in the eye. He knew exactly why I said that, the same thing he told me almost 20 years ago. I repeated just to drive it home. "Seneca, you're being a baby. I never quoted you for anything. You imagined it." He knew I was destroying him financially because of a Batman action figure he stole from me 20 years ago. I could see it in his eyes, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. His expression was a mixture of astonishment and disgust. I looked him dead in the eyes for a few seconds for effect, then got up and left. I slept like a baby that night, and had a goofy smile all week after. He tried calling a few times but sent him a text stating that further harassment will be met with legal action. "Derek, you know what your real name is, and what mine is. If in future you read this and realize how I screwed you over, remember how costly that little Batman action figure was to you after years of accumulated interest in karma. The look of despair on your face when you realize why you are ruined was delicious. I cackle maniacally on the drive home from that convenience store. It was time for you to pay the piper. And if you think this will help you legally, go ahead and try. It won't, so don't waste your time. Or rather, waste as much time and money. I welcome being even more of a financial inconvenience to your life. Not an idiot. What I admire here is your amazing restraint in that final encounter. I'd have dug for more gold at my own expense, really. You were unkind to me in school. How so? Which would have just opened cans of worms and doors to counterproductive engagement. You did none of it. You left it all unsaid except the key line. Amazing. Should he have shown mercy? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I an idiot for taking the retirement benefits of a man who harassed me? So this took place over 3 years, give or take some. I, female 29, left the military and picked up a contracting job in the same field. While I was starting my new career, I was also leaving an unhappy and abusive marriage. My ex-husband, male 29, was a store manager at a GameStop, and when asked if he gave military discounts, he would give military discounts and ask if people knew me on base and what I was up to. A man we will call Bubble Base, male 35, actually worked for me, and the two of them bonded over their mutual hate for women. Bubble Base would refer to me as a whore and slut at work, and even went so far as to attempt to get my home address to give to my ex. I reported the incidents through proper channels and had to get a new apartment, but unsurprisingly the military did nothing to Bubble Base. So I decided to keep my eyes on him and wait until he made another misstep. Over the next 3 years working with him was horrible. He would undermine my authority in the section by telling junior people I was stupid, being intentionally insubordinate, and publicly talking about how he was exploiting the foster care system to make money for the children he was supposed to be taking care of. About a year ago now, another girl, female 20, came to me and told me that Bubble Base was approaching her in a way that made her uncomfortable. When I pulled up their chat logs, Bubble Base was begging her to have sex with him even though he was married, and she was repeatedly telling him she wasn't interested. I convinced the girl to report Bubble Base despite her hesitation. During the investigation, while I was interviewed, I spared no detail about what exactly Bubble Base was doing and saying to include fraud, waste, and abuse of government assets and systems. I kept a literal poop list with dates and times. As things turned out, there were about 4 other women at our base Bubble Base was sexually harassing. Bubble Base went to non-judicial punishment this week and lost everything. He has 18 years in the military and was 2 years away from a full retirement. He lost his clearance. He lost his foster children. He lost his honorable discharge. He is literally starting life over in his 30 seconds with a discharge that shows he sexually harasses women with no benefits and 18 years of training in a job field that is only relevant if he has a clearance. You're an idiot. Yes, he was horrible to you, but you effectively just ruined his life. He was a hard-working man, and yet again, the world is punishing him for it. Not an idiot. Sweet revenge might take some time, but this was so worth it, IMO. You did well, Opus. Harassing women and approaching them like that is unacceptable, and he should have known it wasn't even before, but especially after the first time he was reported. Was he just a hard-working man? Let me know in the comments. Now, am I an idiot for going to work for a few days to teach my husband a lesson? Okay, I get the title sounds horrible, but hear me out. I have a 12-year-old son and a 13-month-old. Before the pandemic I worked part-time, went to school part-time and took care of the house, kids when not doing the other two. Since the pandemic I became a stay-at-home mom, still going to school, taking care of the house, kids. But now with school back in session and my son doing e-learning, I also help a lot with that. I have a pretty strict schedule that I keep for myself to allow me to get household chores and the schooling for my son and myself done each day. One day last week, I had a migraine. Nothing I did helped ease it. At some point after 3 p.m., after my son was out of school and the baby was down for a nap, I laid on the couch to try and help the migraine, which did help. My husband came home while I was sleeping and was already in a crap mood and yelled at me that I didn't do anything all day except sleep, eat and get fat. I tried to explain to him I hadn't been feeling well and napped because of that. He said that was an excuse and how would I like it if I went to work all day and he was home with the children and I came in and he was asleep on the couch. I said, I would assume you were tired or not feeling well. Husband took a few days off work. I made arrangements with a friend to do temp work with her. I went to work for a few days, leaving him my daily schedule as a guide. The first day he called me 20 times because he couldn't handle my son's schoolwork, couldn't handle taking care of the baby, couldn't even go to the bathroom without one of them needing something. The second day, he called me 10 times with the same complaints. Both days he was asleep on the couch because he was exhausted from trying to keep up with the kids and housework. I went to work the third day. He showed up with the kids and dropped them off without saying anything to me or my friend. Luckily, my friend didn't mind. When I got home the third evening, he was asleep on the couch. I let him sleep. I mowed the grass, pulled weeds, cleaned up the house, made dinner. I tried to wake him for dinner. He refused to wake up. Got the kids bathed and ready for bed before he woke up. Husband barely did the minimum of caring for the house and kids while I worked. He said I did it to make him look like a SHT parent. I said no, I did it to teach you a lesson, that just because you don't see me actively doing something when you come home doesn't mean I haven't done anything all day. This all started because you refused to let me tell you I had a migraine and was just barely able to function that day. Luckily, the oldest knows what he needs to do for schoolwork and just sometimes needs some help with it. Baby is up at 7 but goes down for a nap at 12. He sleeps 3 to 4 hours. Am I an idiot for trying to get my husband to see what I do on a daily basis? In the days that followed that post, I read the comments and messages from everyone here. Seriously, thank you guys who gave me a ton to think about. I told my husband that I wanted to separate, not a divorce, as I wanted to try therapy before making that decision. That I didn't feel like he appreciated what I do every single day. I also said that he needed to get into therapy if he wanted to have a chance to save our marriage. We could go together or separately, but I already had an appointment set for myself. The kids and I are staying with a friend who I do pay some rent to, as well as I clean up and help her in her little shop when she needs it. I have kids the majority of the time. While he's at work, the kids are with me. 3 nights a week the kids will go with him, usually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights depending on his work schedule. We have been to 2 virtual therapy sessions with a marriage counselor. He is also seeing a counselor on his own. As am I. In the weeks since the post, I have seen a difference in how my husband speaks and acts towards me. Whether it stays is another matter. He wasn't always the angry, ungrateful man that was portrayed in my previous post. There was a time when he actually showed he appreciated the things I did and would never say hurtful things to me. I'm not sure when it all began to change and when I began to believe it was okay, the things he said and how he acted. We both have a long road to get back to normal. I do hope it's with him, but I'll be okay if it's not. I do love my husband and I want to go home to him. A few mutual friends that know the full story of what's going on with my husband and I texted me to tell me they have noticed a change in his behavior as well. One pointed out that he's not drinking like he used to, but he's not wanting to go home either. According to this friend, my husband complains that it's too quiet at home, that it doesn't feel like home. Not an idiot. You are rebuilding the boundaries this man once completely trampled on. Good for you and also good for him for attempting to change his behavior. I hope that he does come around. However, if he doesn't, please keep protecting your boundaries. As the mother of his children, you do not deserve to be disrespected, especially all that you do. I wish you guys the best.